Before we get into today's video on how to breed for blue-eyed white rabbits, all the different things you need to consider, I want to share this book. So this is the second copy of the book that I've owned, and I use it so much, it's literally like falling apart. The pages are coming out of it. It's called It's As Easy as ABC, about bunny colors. Hi everybody, I'm Stephanie from Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry Yarns LLC. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how to breed a blue-eyed white rabbit. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell, that way you get notified when we release all of our videos. It's usually every Monday and Saturday with videos in between. So we're going to start out, we have about 5 or 6 tips that we will share for figuring out how to breed a blue-eyed white rabbit. The first is we want to keep it simple. So there's really only 2 genes when we're thinking about breeding for a blue-eyed white rabbit that we want to concentrate on. We care about these 2 genes. This is how they're written. This is the Vienna gene, and so that means if there's 2 of the little v's, it's going to be a blue-eyed white. This is the red-eyed white. We abbreviate blue-eyed white like this, a BEW, B-E-W. The red-eyed white or the ruby-eyed white is a RU. So these are the genes that we're focusing on. We'll explain more. So the next part is there's a few terms that we will be using, and we have the dominant and the recessive. So in our genes, in any of the genes for breeding the blue-eyed white rabbits, we have genes that are dominant, and that means these genes overpower whoever they're paired with. We have genes that are recessive. These are the genes that they do not get to be shown, and they are typically overpowered when there's a dominant one with them. What do I mean by that? So in this, a big V is a dominant gene. A little c is a recessive gene. Same thing. A big C means it's dominant. A capital letter is dominant. A lowercase v, just like a lowercase c, means it's recessive. So it's an easy way to remember. If you ever see an uppercase letter, that's saying that's a dominant copy of the gene. And if you see a lowercase letter, that means it's recessive. So in this, we have both a dominant because we have an uppercase V, and we have a recessive because we have a lowercase v. In this, we have a dominant uppercase C and a recessive lowercase c. To get a blue-eyed white, you actually need 2 recessives. You need 2 genes together, one from the mom, one from the dad, when you're breeding rabbits, 2 recessive. If you have a RU, it's the same thing, a red-eyed white. That's 2 recessive genes. And so to get a RU, you want 2 recessive of the RU genes. To get a BEW, you want 2 recessive of the Vienna marked genes. And that's the name of the gene for the blue-eyed whites, is a Vienna gene, which is why it's a V. So here's a few more things. You need to figure out how to use figure out how to use the terms Vienna marked, and so Vienna marked is a rabbit that has, it looks almost like a Dutch patterning, and it'll have a white blaze on its head. The blaze can be very thick, it can be very big, or it could have just a few tufts of white fur at the top. It could have a few tufts of white fur and maybe a white spot on the nose. You can find like on the tips of the paws, or maybe an entire paw might be white, but really it's that white blaze, white on the nose and white on the paws. So that's a Vienna marked rabbit. It looks kind of like a Dutch. When we see a Vienna marked rabbit, it could have entirely brown eyes, it could have entirely blue eyes, or it could have a mixture of brown and blue, which is called marbling. So it could have in the same eye, it could have blue and brown, or it could have one blue eye, one brown eye. It could also have one marbled eye and another marbled eye, or one marbled eye and one brown eye. There's a lot of combinations for when you have a Vienna marked rabbit, what you get for the eye color. The next is what we call a VC, or a Vienna carrier. So a Vienna carrier is an angora rabbit that you know has the Vienna gene, because we keep track of it on paper, one copy of the Vienna gene, but it doesn't look like it is a Vienna marked rabbit. So this rabbit would, for example, it could be all brown, no white on it. And so it's almost like hiding or just simply carrying under its skin. It's just carrying the gene. It's not actually showing or expressing the Vienna gene. The next is your BEW. That's the blue-eyed white. So these are the three types of rabbits you can get when you have either one or two of the Vienna genes. So let's talk about this. How many Vienna genes would a Vienna marked rabbit have? They will only have one recessive gene. How many of the Vienna genes will a Vienna carrier have? They will only have one of the recessive gene. How many of the Vienna genes will a blue-eyed white have? Two. They'll have two of the Vienna genes. Remember, the Vienna gene is written with a lowercase v when it has two of the recessive, because it's a recessive gene. So this is one dominant, one recessive. What we know is the only way to get a blue-eyed white is to have a rabbit that has two of the Vienna genes. If you only have one, you might get a Vienna marked rabbit, which looks like a Dutch. Or if the rabbit only inherits one, you might also get a Vienna carrier, which is a rabbit that will be all one color and it won't have any of the white. So the only way you know you have a Vienna carrier is when you track it on paper. So there's some more terms. This is important to know. We're actually talking about the differences of phenotype versus genotype. What we're saying is the Vienna marked, the Vienna carrier, and the blue-eyed white are the phenotypes. Phenotype is just a fancy word that we use for saying what the rabbit looks like. So a phenotype, we could say these are the phenotype possibilities. We know that when we're breeding for a blue-eyed white, we know that if we have one recessive Vienna gene, we could have a phenotype. So the rabbit will either look like a Vienna marked rabbit, or we could have the phenotype of a Vienna carrier, and it'll just look like a rabbit that is one color. The phenotype of blue-eyed white means the rabbit is all white and has blue eyes. So if you ever hear the word phenotype, that's what it's referring to, what the rabbit looks like. Now the genotype, that's simple, that's just the genes. These are the genes. So your genotype is what genes does the rabbit actually have. So if you want a blue-eyed white, you have 2 recessive Vienna genes. This is the genotype, VV. If you have a red-eyed white, you have the genotype CC, 2 lowercase c's, that's red-eyed white or ruby-eyed white. So going forward, there's a lot more genes for color in a rabbit. We are not even going to look at those because we want it kept simplified. Once you know the terms, once you're familiar with the terms, once you're familiar with the different parts, these are the basics. There's a few more things to consider. So we use something called a Punnett square to figure out when we have 2 rabbits. We want to figure out what are my chances of getting these rabbits. So a Punnett square is simply taking one of your rabbits, your buck, let's use Arthur for example. So my Arthur rabbit is a Vienna marked buck. This means he has the markings of the white blaze, and he has a little bit of white on his paws and some white on his upper shoulder area. Arthur, since he's Vienna marked, that's his phenotype, we can see he's Vienna marked, and he has like one little blue spot on one of his eyes. We can tell, and we know his genotype is a VV. We're going to put one V here and one V here. We're going to draw our little square. There's 4 boxes in our square. Let's say we're going to breed Arthur to another Vienna marked rabbit, and the other Vienna marked rabbit has the same genotype of VV. So this is the other doe. We're going to put one uppercase V here, one lowercase here. And this is a simple matching game after that, using your Punnett square. So in this box, we're going to go across and we're going to say, here's a V, and we're going to go down, here's a V. We're going to go across and we're going to bring this V across, and we're going to bring this V down. Same thing, we move on to this 3rd square. Here's a little V. So we're going to put that little V there and down, a big V. We have a little V and a little V. Each of these represent the possibilities of what you get when you breed a Vienna marked rabbit with a Vienna marked rabbit. So that's breeding a VV uppercase dominant with lowercase recessive, 2 rabbits who share that same, the same genotype. You get 2 uppercase V's as a possibility. So out of your litter of rabbits, the potential for a rabbit that does not carry the recessive Vienna marked gene, you have a 25% chance of getting a rabbit that does not carry the gene. VV, 2 big V's, remember, that is, the big V is the dominant, that's not going to show. It overpowers that little recessive Vienna gene, so it's not going to show at all. Now, if we move across we have a big V, when you have a little v. If you remember down here, we also have a little v and a big V. The order, if the little v comes first or if the big V comes first, doesn't matter. There's only 2 genes from each parent, and what matters is how many of each that are lowercase, how many that are dominant. You can write it either way. This, when you have an uppercase V and a lowercase v, remember you have a possibility of either Vienna marked or Vienna carrier. This is a 50%, because there's 2 of the 4 boxes, that's half. A 50% chance of getting Vienna marked and Vienna carrier rabbits. So next we have 2 little v's. This V, the small v, is recessive. This V, the small v, is recessive. And the only time we get the blue-eyed white is right here. A 25% chance of the small recessive genes. So if you remember dominant versus recessive, the dominant overpowers the recessive. Anytime you have that big V in there, you're not going to get a blue-eyed white. It's just not going to happen. We have to have 2 recessive genes to get a blue-eyed white. Let's do another Punnett square. This time we'll have this little square over here. And let's say, for example, we breed Arthur again. He has 1 dominant and 1 recessive. He only has 1 of the recessive Vienna genes that will potentially, when paired with another Vienna gene, produce a blue-eyed white. Let's see we breed Arthur to a blue-eyed white doe. A blue-eyed white doe has 2 recessive. That's 2 little v's. The blue-eyed white doe carries 2 of the Vienna genes, and that means when you have 2 Vienna genes, you have the blue-eyed white. So we do the same thing. Each of these boxes is like a rabbit, and each of these bunnies, baby bunnies, will get 1 of the genes from their parents. Let's say we've got this V here, big V, and then over here, little v. We've got little v from here and little v going across there. We've got a little v here, big V. Now a little v, big V. If you notice, it doesn't matter if I start with this V, it doesn't matter if I start with that V or this one or that one, it doesn't matter. As long as the only way down is the big V can only be put into these boxes. The little v only goes in the boxes below it. This little v only goes in the boxes in this section. This little v only goes in that section. So again, when we look at this Punnett square, we figure out that we have a big V and a little v, big V. This is, again, either Vienna marked or Vienna carrier, big V, little v, big V, little v. We have 50, since there's 2 squares, we have a 50% chance of either Vienna marked, Vienna carrier rabbits out of this breeding. And there's 2 little v's. So 2 little v's, that's the blue-eyed white, because 2 recessive genes, there's no dominant gene that's covering up that recessive gene. The little recessive genes can speak and shout and show who they are. Nobody's dominating them. We have a 50% chance of blue-eyed white in that litter. So let's say we have Arthur, again, Vienna, 1 Vienna gene, and then 1 of the dominant genes. We want 2 of those recessive for the blue-eyed white. And we breed him to Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey is interesting. She does not have a single Vienna gene. That means she only has 2 big V's. Two big V's. Arthur, again, has a big V and a little v. So I did breed Arthur to Mariah Carey on May 5th, and she's due very, very soon for baby bunnies. What are we going to get? Are we going to get any Vienna marked rabbits? Are we going to get any Vienna carriers? Are we going to get any blue-eyed whites out of this breeding? Well, we know to get a blue-eyed white, we need 2 of the recessive genes. Each parent provides 1 gene. If we see that Mariah Carey doesn't carry any of the recessive Vienna genes, we automatically know there's no way we can get a blue-eyed white out of this breeding, because there's no way for Mariah Carey to give that recessive small V. She doesn't carry it. It would look like this. 2 big V's, a big V and a little v, 2 big V's, a big V and a little V, because again, this V goes down, this V goes down, this V goes across, this V goes across, and you end up with 1 gene from each parent. So 2 big V's means this is just a regular colored rabbit. This rabbit isn't Vienna marked, and it's not going to be a Vienna carrier. So 50% of the litter is just going to be average. 50% is just going to be regular rabbits who don't carry the recessive Vienna marked gene. And then we look across, we've got the big V and the little v, the big V and the little v. This tells us that we have 50% of the litter is going to be either Vienna marked or Vienna carriers. So we wouldn't get any blue-eyed whites out of this. What happens if you breed a blue-eyed white with a blue-eyed white? Remember the blue-eyed white, 2 lowercase recessive genes, and when you have 2 of those lowercase recessive genes, they turn into the blue-eyed white. So let's do a little square here, 2 small V's. Let's say 2 blue-eyed white parents. Every single box is going to be lowercase V's. 100% chance of blue-eyed white rabbits. When you breed a blue-eyed white rabbit with a blue-eyed white rabbit, that's what you're going to get, blue-eyed white rabbits. You're not going to get anything else. Now that we understand how to do the basics of the blue-eyed whites, there's this gene. Remember, we have to worry about 2 genes. There's this gene to worry about, the red-eyed white gene. This is how it looks. If you have a rabbit without the red-eyed white gene, that's this little dude right here, you need 2 of these recessive genes, 2 lowercase c's, to be a red-eyed white. If you have a rabbit that doesn't have any of those lowercase, you have no genes. If you have a rabbit that has 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, you're going to have 1 red-eyed white gene. Now, if you have a rabbit with 2 lowercase, you have 2 of the recessive red-eyed white genes. We need to know about the recessive red-eyed white genes. We need to know if the rabbits that we're breeding together carry that gene, because the best chances for getting a blue-eyed white rabbit, use rabbits that you know do not have the red-eyed white gene, because this is what happens. Even if you have a rabbit that carries 2 of the Vienna genes, meaning you should have the phenotype of a blue-eyed white rabbit, your rabbit should look like it has blue eyes and white fur. This is the problem. If you have 2 red-eyed white genes, this gene, this is more powerful. This red-eyed white gene is more powerful than the Vienna gene. So it will show a white rabbit with red eyes. when you're trying to breed a blue-eyed white rabbit, what you want, just stick to the rule of keeping a rabbit with no red-eyed white genes, because if you get 2 of those red-eyed white genes, it will mask, it's going to hide, it's going to give the albino red or pink ruby eyes on your rabbit. It will not express, you will not see, the phenotype is going to be a red-eyed white. So when you have the genes, not only do you have the dominant and recessive in the individual pairing of the genes, but you have genes that are paired together that are more dominant than others. The albino gene is more dominant when you have 2 than if you have 2 of the blue. So if there's a war between the red-eyed white genes, if you have 2 red-eyed white genes and 2 of the blue-eyed white genes, the red-eyed white genes always win. So when you're looking at that, let's take Arthur and Mariah Carey. Let's take these 2 genes, and I want to show you just with the recessive red-eyed white genes. I know Arthur does not carry the red-eyed white gene. That means 2 big C's for Arthur. He does not carry the red-eyed white gene. I know Mariah Carey does carry 1 red-eyed white gene. 1 little recessive red-eyed white gene. So if we were concerned and looking just at the red-eyed whites, what are our chances that we're going to get a red-eyed white rabbit overpowering any of the Vienna genes? Let's look at our chances. So we carry the C's across and down, 2 big C's, again carry that C across, carry this C down, 2 big C's, carry this C across, this C down, this C across, this C down. Remember, if you have 2 of the little C's, that's the only way you get the red-eyed white. So if you get 2 red-eyed whites, or 2 recessive red-eyed white genes, you get a red-eyed white rabbit, no matter what. Even if they have 2 of the blue-eyed white genes, it doesn't matter. The red-eyed white always overpowers it. So we know we have a 50% chance that the offspring from these 2, Arthur and Mariah Carey, 50% of the babies, 50% chance, they're not even going to inherit 1 copy of the red-eyed white gene. Because remember, each parent gives 1 gene to the baby. We know that there's a 50% chance that the babies, 50%, will get 1 of the red-eyed white recessive genes. So it takes 2 small recessive red-eyed white genes to get a red-eyed white. We know that none of these rabbits are going to be red-eyed white because none of these have the 2 small C's. This is the other important piece, is that if we're breeding these 2 together, and we're hoping for in the future to get a blue-eyed white rabbit, 50% of Mariah Carey's babies are going to carry that red-eyed white gene. So when we're breeding for the blue-eyed white genes, if we were to breed, let's say, 1 of these babies, a little C and a big C, and let's say we bred them back to Mariah Carey, which is your big C, your little C. Let's try this Punnett square again, going all the way across. Big C, down, little C, across, big C, down, big C, across, little C, across, little c, big C. This is where our problems come in when we're breeding the blue-eyed white rabbits. When we have a rabbit that hides and carries the recessive red-eyed white gene, and we breed it to another rabbit that is hiding and carrying that recessive red-eyed white gene, we have a 25% chance that of that litter, 25% chance that there's going to be red-eyed whites as a result. And it doesn't matter. Even if this rabbit has 2 Vienna genes, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be a blue-eyed white rabbit. It's always going to be the red-eyed white, because the red-eyed white wins. It's the red-eyed white recessive albino gene is dominant over every other gene. So this is a little bit of why we need to know about the red-eyed white gene, because it completely dominates and washes out our rabbit's eyes of any of the blue. If you're breeding for the blue-eyed white, you're not going to get a blue-eyed white unless you have a rabbit that is either 2 or only 1 recessive red-eyed white gene. I hope that makes sense. So your best bet is avoid any RU genes in your blue-eyed white program. And how do you figure out, how do you know if your rabbit actually carries that recessive red-eyed white gene? This is where talking to your breeder, this is where looking at the pedigree. There's pedigrees available that actually list the genotypes. So they list the genetics, the genetic coloring of the rabbits. Some breeders keep track of that. They know exactly what they've bred to what, who they've bred to who, and what they have. If you have, the other option is if you take a red-eyed white rabbit and you breed it, for example, to a rabbit that maybe you're unsure. And if you have red-eyed white rabbits, then the rabbit you're unsure of, it's going to be a red-eyed white carrier. Now the same thing can go for your Vienna carriers, which is if you are unsure if your rabbit carries the blue-eyed white gene, you breed that rabbit that you're not sure if it has the blue-eyed white gene, you breed it to a blue-eyed white rabbit. And if you have blue-eyed white rabbits in that litter, that means the rabbit that you're unsure of does have the blue-eyed white gene. So it sounds complicated because there's a lot of different terms and there's a lot of different things to remember when you're breeding for the blue-eyed white gene. And it typically takes breeders a long time to be able to introduce and successfully breed for blue-eyed white healthy rabbits, because there needs to be enough of a diversity to be in the genes to be able to have healthy, good rabbits with blue eyes. So again, those are the different things to consider. These are the things that you think about, that a good breeder thinks about when they're looking at that slice of how to breed for a blue-eyed white rabbit. These are the 2 genes that they truly focus on. But also a good breeder will take a look at all the aspects of the rabbit, not just whether the rabbit has blue eyes and white fur. The breeder will look at more. For example, it will look at the actual maternal instincts of the rabbit they're breeding. They will look at the litter size. They're going to look at, does the mother build a nest well? Does she take care of the rabbits? Does she produce enough milk? How are the rabbits that the breeder is breeding together for health? Do they have longevity? Do they have a susceptibility to illness? Are there different diseases such as cancer that happen to pop up over and over in a particular line? A good breeder will also be able to tell you what they're breeding for. And so if you're looking for a breeder and you're thinking about, I want a blue-eyed white rabbit, you can get a blue-eyed white rabbit, but how did that breeder get to that blue-eyed white rabbit? That's one of the things you really want to know. After you understand the basics of all this, and if you're looking for a blue-eyed white rabbit, that's something that is important, is if there's a lot of breeding of the same rabbits without any additional outside rabbits coming in, then you really want to make sure that you're getting that rabbit from a breeder if there's a lot of close breeding that absolutely knows what they're doing and knows that, yes, you know, there isn't a history of cancer in these rabbits. So that way, you know, I know that these breedings are, they have the high probability of doing well. And if you also have a breeder, for example, that can't really explain to you why or how or their methodology of arriving at a blue-eyed white rabbit, be concerned and walk away. That's my advice. But anyways, there you go. Thanks for watching. This is probably one of the most detailed videos that we've done on this, and make sure to hit the subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. We'll see you in our next video.